For those of you just joining us, I'm here with Marcus Baskerville, founder and head brewer of Weathered Souls Brewing Company. And you're also on the board of the Black Brewers Association, is that correct?
Yeah, so technically I'm still on the board for the BA for 2 more weeks. And then recently just had my inauguration of becoming president of the National Black Brewers Association about 2 weeks ago.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. More work.
Yes. It's important work.
Very important work.
Can you tell us about how your involvement with the association?
With the NB2A? Yeah. Well, obviously, a lot of these things are catalysts of Black is Beautiful and a lot of things that I've been talking about for years, right? Especially with the lack of diversity in beer. But what was interesting was I guess we're in the new year. So we'll go 2022. I get a text, and it's like November timeframe, October timeframe. I get a text, and it's like, "Hey, this is Kevin Johnson reaching out to you, and I wanted to talk to you when you have an opportunity. Hit me up." And I was like, Kevin Johnson? Like, the only Kevin Johnson I know is the former mayor of Sacramento, like the old NBA player. And actually, I know another Kevin Johnson here in San Antonio, but I have his number. So I'm like, I'm just not going to respond. So I didn't respond. And then like 2-3 weeks later, I get another text and was like, "This is Kevin Johnson's assistant. And I'm contacting you to get you in contact with, Kevin Johnson, yada, yada, yada. Let me know your availability." And I was like, "Oh, snap. This is the real Kevin Johnson. Okay." So I was like, let me respond this time. And
how did he ended up get your number?
That's what I want to know too. No, we have some common associates. And I'm originally from Sacramento, so we have some common associates. So he got my number, and we had a conversation, and one of the things he had asked me is, what I thought about starting a National Black Brewers Association. And at first I'm like, it's going to be difficult, right? We just know the overall course of trying to get a whole bunch of Black people together to accomplish things. And so I'm like, well, if this is something that's going to be successful, you need to include certain people. So obviously, like Teo from Crowns and Hops was a part of that conversation. Celeste from Harlem Brewing, Dr. J, Garrett, etc. And you know what? He went ahead and got those people involved and hit me up like another month later. I was like, "Hey, we're gonna make this happen, and I want you to be on the board." So all of us were founding members on the board, creating the organization, and Mr. Johnson ended up stepping down this year. Obviously, he's a busy man, especially dealing with the restaurant business and getting those fixings open and all those type of things. So he's very much still supportive of the organization. He's still past president and sits as an advisor in that sense. But yeah, Garrett is also somebody that is very overly busy, especially with the Michael J. Jackson Foundation. So he was actually next in line to be president, but decided to step aside because of his other responsibilities. And so after that, I was in line. And so, yeah, it was like, told like, "Hey, guess what? You're going to be president this year." And so, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a huge responsibility, especially stepping in right after Kevin and the things that he's accomplished within the last year, just getting the financial backing, the resources, some of the advisory council that is involved. And so a little bit nervous, but definitely have my agenda for the year, the things that I want to focus on and kind of continuing to build up the organization. And then obviously with the director and Kevin Asado, gonna lean heavily on him to get the things that needed to be done accomplished. And yeah, I look forward to this year and working with the individuals that are on the board and even the advisory committee, the advisory board, But one of the things that I told the board this year is like, we have a lot of work to do. We don't have Kevin Johnson anymore, so all of this is on us.
Yeah,
But trying to legitimize this organization, create something that's going to be everlasting for people like us is going to be very important for this year.
absolutely. And can you tell more about what was the impetus that motivated the establishment of the Black Brewers Association?
I always like to say there wasn't much conversation about diversity in beer until Black is Beautiful happened. You had a lot of, you had individuals that were fighting the good cause, right? Dr. J's been around for the longest time. You had the individuals in pink boots that were being vocal and things like that, but it wasn't to the type of conversation that it is now. And so I think a lot of it has to do with raising that awareness behind Black is Beautiful and the way that it transitioned, right? A lot of different influencers got a lot of visibility. A lot of brewers got visibility. The Michael J. Jackson Foundation started after that. There's multiple organizations that have occurred after the courses of what Black is Beautiful was able to establish. And so I think, honestly, the work behind that was a huge driver into getting this organization launched. But then also, there is the fact that we don't have a lot of resources. We don't have a lot of access to financing and things like that, which has been the large driver. You got 10,000 plus breweries, and I think less than 80 of them are like actually Black owned. And then even less have, brick and mortar locations and things like that. The majority of them are contract brewers. And so I think those are all important drivers into finally getting this organization launched to make some changes.
Absolutely. So things like advocacy and mentorship are really important. So that's like, I imagine, an important role that this association will be filling.
So my goals this year, the obviously goal of the organization is to build more Black ownership within beer, right? That's the most important aspect of what this organization is driving for. But then also, again, dealing with the advocacy, education, and things like that. So my goals this year, like one of the things the Black Brewers Association did last year was able to give Harlem Brewing an entire brew house. And so you figure Celeste has been around for 20 something years and have never had a brick and mortar location. And this organization was able to provide her a actual system to start building and brewing her own beer. Obviously, getting another brewery to do something similar this year is going to be very important for me. So either providing equipment for one of these contract breweries and or actually launching a brewery is going to be important to continue that drive at advocacy and providing what this group is going to be about. But mine is kind of more so because this organization is new and less than a year old. Obviously, the goal is to establish the legitimacy, start building more relationships, start driving the board towards specific goals. Like I said, both Kevins did an amazing job getting this organization launched. And so one of the main things was the actual board of directors. To me, obviously we had influence and we were doing work, but not to say the amount of work that I've seen in some other boards. And so getting the board of directors established now to realize, hey, all of this is going to be on you guys this year is one of the important goals. Getting some necessary subcommittees started is a very important goal. So my first meeting, we launched the marketing and PRM subcommittee, which T.O. is going to be leading, which is amazing because T.O. is an amazing marketing genius between him and Benny. So I'm like, why are we not utilizing these people's skills within the organization and the board? These are things that miss opportunities that we're having. And then the other thing is establishing some additional financing and resources for the board. And we're not board, excuse me, for our members and for the actual organization. Obviously, money is what drives. And so kind of building some more people to the advisory council, building more people in some of our strategic partners, are going to be the important things that are going to kind of continue to make sure that this board can continue on for years to come.
Absolutely. I think, while Black Brewers Association may fulfill some traditional roles, I think a lot of what you offer is something different that Black brewers aren't necessarily going to access in the Brewers Association.
Well, I was on the board. The main thing that was important to me was getting contract brewers to have voting rights. So if people are listening and you're a member of the BA, make sure that you're voting on the new policies, the new bylaws, because that was one of the important things that happened this year, was when we actually finally voted to have that established, where contract brewers get voting rights, because you figure the majority of contract brewers are who? Black and women. And so how I put it to the board of directors of the Brewers Association is, this reminds me, why are we even having this conversation? This reminds me of the 1960s when you guys were trying to find a reason why Black people can't vote. And I'm a very blunt individual. I don't care. So that's exactly how I put it. And you should have heard the dead silence in the boardroom. But I'm happy that this is something that's going to be going through this year, because that changes the dynamics, right? I mean, you provide money, you get accesses to the resources, but I'm paying money and can't even vote on the things that are important in the industry that I'm in. And so being able to establish things like that is going to be obviously be important. But even the fact that we had to go through that for the BAs, to me, is ridiculous. And so, they're like, why do you need a Black Brewers Association? That's one of many reasons why we do. We're very much still neglected, in a sense, in some of those policies, some of those bylaws and things that go on, where they might not even realize that it affects us in that matter, but it does.
Absolutely. That perspective, as you just mentioned, your voice makes a difference, and it's needed, because when everyone agrees, it's not always a good thing. Be able to talk about the things that matter. And so I'm just excited to be part of helping you announce this new role. In other exciting news, so some work with your brewery, things of positive development. Can you share those with
us? So one of the things that I announced last year was obviously trying to buy out my partner. Over the course of the years, I appreciate the things that my business partner has done, been able to establish for me. It's provided me the financial things that I've needed to be successful. But when it comes to owning, running, establishing a business, money is not always everything, right? There's other things that get driven into the business: the culture, procedures, policies, establishing your brand, mission, all of those things. And some of those things we have missed the mark over the last couple of years. And, my job has always been creating beer. And so those primary things hasn't been my focus. But as the business grew, especially after Black is Beautiful, I realized these are things that are needed for us to establish ourselves and run a successful business. I very much come from the course of corporate America, working for Citibank back in the day. And, as much as we hate corporate America, a lot of these things should be established in your everyday business practices. And in the brewing industry, we've had a lot of people that are owners of business that don't necessarily know anything about running a brewery or a restaurant business. And so over the course of time, those kind of things start moving into the course of your business, and they always don't work in a positive manner. So being said that, one of the things that I wanted to do was buy out my partner, because there's a lot of things that I feel that I've spoken of over the course of the years that should have been done and implemented into the course of Weathered Souls that hasn't been, and that's just being blunt and honest. And so we've grown at the point now where it's one of the common themes, I guess, that I've said multiple times over the last few months is you can lead a horse to water. You can't force them to drink, right? And it's like, why do I sit on the board of this? Why do I sit on the board of that? Why do I have these mentors here? Why do I have these mentors there? And I'm coming and providing you certain information that's pertinent to us. And some of these things are 2 years in advance, a year and a half in advance to where the current industry is. And you don't want to listen to what I'm telling you. And so, yes, and obviously announcing that I wanted to buy out my partner was a big thing last year because we never really established that conversation. But he's ready to get out of the scene. And dealing with the Charlotte location, we ended up opening a Charlotte location a little over a year and a half ago. And so dealing with the Charlotte location was interesting because for me, I would have never opened that Charlotte location. I would have put some money back into the San Antonio location, got like a centrifuge like I've been asking for, and used the rest of that money and put it away to establish our savings. Well, we spent $1.7 million on a brewery in Charlotte, went $800,000 over budget, had issues with delays in construction and etc., and had to put more money into it. So needless to say, that was very detrimental to the overall brand because obviously that's extra money we didn't have, and they were moving and transitioning into the way that the scene is now. And then on top of that, we're not brewing there, we're not distributing to these locations or anything like that to help us in that particular market. And so these are all things that I've talked, to be honest, that I've talked about. Hey, we should have been distributing here. Hey, we probably should have a brewer here and have established beers for the Charlotte market. These are things that customers, consumers look for. But you know, I don't control those things currently. So luckily for Charlotte, because Charlotte, again, to be frank, was on the brink of closure because all this extra money went into that location and it wasn't driving the customer base that was needed to sustain that location. And luckily a group has agreed to buy Weathered Souls. Deal's not 100% done to my knowledge, but it is in the works and we'll save that location, which is positive. And then the San Antonio location, which is dear to my heart and what I've been trying to purchase, I'm currently working with an investment group where that will hopefully work out and get the San Antonio market, our location, bought out to kind of reestablish that, pull some funds into there and make some necessary changes and things like that. But being the type of person that I am, like we're talking about, I enjoy the kitchen and things like that. I'm very much into culinary customer experience and things like that. Like one of the things that really motivated me, do you watch The Bear? Have you seen The Bear on Hulu? All right, so Bear is an excellent series with Lip from Shameless. And basically it's about this individual, he's like world-renowned chef, Michelin star, all that type of stuff. And he moves back home to Chicago to run his brother's sandwich shop. His brother committed suicide, passed away, and he's going to go save the business. Well, instead of continuing the sandwich shop, he decides that he wants to turn this into a restaurant. And so the first season is basically establishing his relationship with the rest of the staff and stuff like that. Second season is about them actually working to open the restaurant. And one of the episodes is about his cousin, like play cousin Richie. And Richie goes and works for this Michelin star restaurant. And basically they have him shining dishes the entire time. And he's pissed. He thinks it's like cousin just sent him away to get him out of the way type of thing, like because he's a mess up. And, you know, he just wants me out of the way while you guys get everything established and things like that. But it's really about teaching him the importance of customer experience and driving the necessary things to make your customer happy, but then obviously make it a one-of-a-kind experience that that people are not familiar with, which will keep them coming to your location and things like that. And so, like, one of the examples was this particular restaurant, and all these restaurants on the show are based off of real restaurants. And so this particular restaurant that they're basing this off of, they do research on you. Like, you know, it's like one of those places where you have to have the reservations months in advance. They do research on you. Go to your social media, see your likes, dislikes, all these common things. And so one of the groups that were eating there was a fan of this particular restaurant for Chicago pizza. So they had Richie go all the way to go grab that pizza, bring it back, and then the chef deconstructed it into an appetizer for him. But just the fact of that attention, that detail, that extraness that went into that experience, you should have seen the customer and how happy and pleased they were and things like that. That's what I want to get driven into. And I mean, I can even talk about, I tried to do this for our staff and, had a conversation with my bar manager, like, we need to do this. Gave her a couple of books to read. Books never got read. Hey, we need to start establishing this because this is what we need to do. But instead of my business partner supporting, backing me up, say, hey, yes, customer service is a very important thing for this course of business, the things that we need to do, I was told to stop taking my frustrations out on the staff. So, now you can kind of see where some of these differentiations of philosophy about business and the way or direction that I want to drive Weather Souls or he wants to take it are completely different at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's unfortunate because, again, I appreciate everything that he's done for me in the course of getting the business set up, giving me an opportunity. But we've come at an impasse as far as what we're looking for next steps. But then even then, you get into the business and like you get so excited, right? So I'm sweat equity and we talk about Black owned and all of that type of stuff. Are we really Black owned? Technically, because I own a small percent, but are we federally Black owned? Hell no. But even in that sense, I'm realizing like I basically got myself in like a music industry 360 deal. Like I control the branding anyway. So naming beers, some of the creativity of social media, obviously the quality of beers. We've been top 20 this, top 10 this, all of these amazing things dealing with the course of our beer. It's always funny because people always equate us with Black is Beautiful, but it was like, no, we had good beer way before Black is Beautiful. But dealing with that, it's like one of those things where you realize now, because I wanted to buy him out, and I won't even say the original amount that he was looking for, but that's what made me realize. And it was like all based off of contingencies that I control. So, we have a potential airport bid going in. We had the Charlotte Hornets deal, the potential for more distribution into more markets. But these are all things that I control, right? These are all relationships that I've built. These are all things that I've been working on. If I was to tell the airport, no, we're not interested, that disappears tomorrow. The Hornets, the same thing. All of these things. So how are you going to base that contingency on that price based off of all the things that I control? But guess what? I don't control the majority of the business. So that's something that they're able to do. And so it's unfortunate because you put in all this work, you put in the sweat, blood, and tears of creating a brand. But then it's like, if you want this brand, you got to basically pay your soul away to keep it. And I honestly wasn't really here for it. I mean, at one point, I actually almost quit just because it was too much. But obviously, I don't, raising daughters, I don't want to teach them to be quitters. But then also, I'm not a quitter myself, and dealing with the staff and people that we have. Obviously, if I was to leave the brand, that would be kind of detrimental to the overall brand of what Weather Souls is. And so I decided that I was just going to work it out and see what happens. So here I am now, a year later, almost a year later after the announcement, because what CDC's in April. So I got 2 months to make it happen before the year. So working on it.
I absolutely think people want food, and so I'm really interested to see what's next for Weathered Souls. Do you think you'll be doing some pairings, or what? What do you?
Yeah. So again, I love the aspect of food, and so it's interesting because we've had some really good kitchens, or well, one really good kitchen over the course of the years, and that was with South Barbecue. In 2021, we were the #1 barbecue beer pairing in the entire state of Texas for Texas Monthly, which is huge, right? Needless to say, that kitchen didn't work out. Not to any, I'll just say not to anything that I did, right? I still have a very fantastic relationship with Chef Andrew, and hopefully the goal is to bring him back into the kitchen one day, um, sooner than later. But actually, we're actually about to bring in a very famous jerk chef by the name of Nicola Black. Young black woman, veteran, and she owns a couple of restaurants in San Antonio, one of them being Jerk Shack, which does some amazing jerk chicken, fried chicken. She's been in USA Today's, top 10 fried chickens in the nation. She was James Beer nominated, semifinalist last year, and, amongst many other things. And so bringing her into the kitchen this year, but obviously, like within the last 2 years of operating in that culinary scene, being James Beard nominated myself, I've had the luxury of building relationships with a lot of chefs, a lot of restaurants, and things like that. And that's one thing that I haven't taken advantage of, is building on these relationships and bringing them into the brewery. I mean, we have a kitchen. And so the goal this year is to start establishing more pairings, more food pairings, more dinners. So we actually did one in January, associated around sliders, which is our current kitchen. This month in February, because it's Valentine's Day, we're doing a cookie and beer pairing with one of my favorite local cookie places. And she actually closed down for a while, but she opened back up. And I was like, oh my God, I need you back in here ASAP, because your cookies are amazing. So that's going to be February. But going through March through December, I'm going to be very strategic as far as the restaurants, chefs, and things that we bring in to build that more culinary experience, right? Because beer is always labeled the like bottom tier of what we look at when it comes to alcoholic beverages, especially when it comes to pairings, right? People want to look at wine, they want to look at cocktails, they want to look at spirits before they get to beer and pairings. And obviously beer pairs amazingly with food, and Pints and Panels has done an amazing job at showcasing some of these things. Even if you haven't got to check out the soul food and beer pairing that I created, but getting into these things are what's going to drive some business and kind of complete me in a sense of the things that I really enjoy when it comes to the beer experience. So this year, will very much be driving more culinary experiences into the brewery, trying to create more pairings to bring in new customers, even dealing with some of our older customers and the things that they enjoy. But that is like one of the top 3 like goals, priorities for Weathered Souls and myself this year.
I think it's a wonderful way to reach out to new customers. You have folks that are coming into beer and they're just new to craft beer, and so maybe it's their first time even really thinking about the beer, and so helping them to appreciate the taste of beer and understand how it works with food is definitely going to really bring people into craft beer. And then bringing the chefs in, you're bringing in all of their audiences as well.
Exactly.
So I think it's really smart what you're doing. You're supporting other small businesses and producers.
One of the things I also want to start doing, pop-ups with up-and-coming chefs, giving them a space to create and do their own thing. Obviously building up that chef community, building up the local scene, and obviously supporting locals, something that's important. Biggest thing for me is realizing how much more I should have been involved in the business side of things. Getting into the business, again, I was excited to be able to function my own brew house. That was always the goal for me. But obviously establishing the business, running the business, the financial aspect of it all, learning the everyday of what's involved with the course of running the business were things that I didn't really typically involve myself in until recently. And so kind of having that hindsight, like, man, I should have really been involved in every aspect of everything, has been a huge drive for me this year. So working in that format, becoming more involved in the everyday course of the business and finances. But then also this year for me is going to be big on leadership. I have my faults. Like I said, I'm very direct, very blunt. I don't typically lead with kindness type of thing when I'm having conversations with people or especially employees. So those are, at least my therapist tells me I'm very self-aware. So I can tell you these things, like I do know about myself. And so very much in the same sense, trying to change them. So obviously establishing goals for myself, implementing a couple of different leadership books, implementing some mentors in and out of the industry to help lead me in the right direction of course of business, how I should interact with people, your everyday course of life. But trying to establish that more leadership role, especially, if I do take over Weathered Souls, that's going to be very important. But then also being the president of the National Black Brewers Association, I have to have a sense of being presidential, right? So kind of diving more into that education aspect and kind of grow more as an individual to be able to be a leader to these other people.
Sure.
I mean, especially, I'm not old, but I'm not young either. And so a lot of times sitting on the board, I am the youngest person. And, it's interesting to lead a group of people that are much older than you or a few years older than you and things like that. And so having that maturity, having that leadership drive is definitely going to be important for me, for people to follow.
Well, it's really impressive that, you've made yourself open and vulnerable to share those things with us. But it's clear that you're doing the work that's needed to be a good leader. And the creativity is there too. I think that's missing a lot in beer sometimes. People are so focused on what's working, what are the numbers, and creativity is so important.
Yeah, that's important in all facets of the business, right? Even from just your everyday, how you function the brand, to the beer. I mean, obviously we have our core beers, right? But what has driven our popularity is getting into some of those creative things and the stouts that we do and our barrel-aged products and things like that. Like I was just having a conversation with a friend earlier, watching the Duke and North Carolina game at the house, and we were talking about like stouts, and he was asking me like, a couple of years ago, your stouts used to be sweeter. Like, why aren't they as sweet anymore? And I was telling him like, I personally don't like sweet stout. And so we used to produce them because the consumer wanted them. But honestly, I got tired of producing them. And even then, they're not healthy for you. Like the amount of non-fermentable sugars that go into some individual stout recipes should be illegal. Like, and the everyday consumer doesn't understand this. Like,
yeah,
they're using non-fermentable sugars that bodybuilders use just to build on calories. Like, you can't continue to do this, and then you guys are drinking multiple bottles. Oh man! And so
it's more like you're getting a sugar rush than
than the alcohol rush. Yeah,
right.
And so for me, it was important that we wanted to maintain creativity of what we were doing with our stouts and our adjunct beers, but made it very important that any of the additional residual sweetness comes from the additional ingredients, not the non-fermentable aspects of the beer. And so we're very much driven on process. Even with our stouts, we're doing double mashes, 28-hour boils, extended fermentation times and things like that to make sure that these beers are finishing where we want them. And then any of the additional like sweetness or any of the additional residual sugars that you're getting is coming from those additional ingredients that we're using. Like if you have a coconut stout and there's any sweetness, it's because it's toasted coconut. If you have a stout with some Oreos in it and sweetness, it's because we actually used Oreos and real cream. That's the other thing. Dealing with creativity, these brewers need to get out of using extracts, because all extracts does is confuse the common consumer, right? So now you have the common consumer coming in and telling me that my pistachio beer doesn't taste like pistachio because it doesn't taste like amaretto or cherries. And it's like, wait a
Yeah.
second, no, that beer that you had at said brewery where your pistachio tastes like amaretto and cherries, you're using fake ass ingredients, and that's why it tastes like that. The little nuttiness on the nose, and you know the aspects that you get of this beer. That's what happens when you actually toast pistachios and crush them and soak all the oils out and toast them again and recirculate them on the beer for 2 or 3 days, and you know, that type of stuff. And so we're very methodical when it comes to creativity. We're very much process driven, very much creative in that sense. Again, that gets into the culinary aspects of being in the kitchen and things like that. So implementing a lot of those things into what you ever do every day, into your brewing practices, has become like an everyday thing for me.
I think it's a wonderful way to differentiate your products is the easier process and just the work that you and the care that you put into your ingredients and how you treat them.
100%. That's one thing that I definitely pride myself on, is that we're using 100% real ingredients. And you know, the average consumer, you know, they don't know. You say there's vanilla in beer, right? And they all process it with a certain flavor of vanilla, but there's different species of vanilla. I can get a Tahitian, it's not going to taste the same as Mexico. And you know, like if I want something that's more marshmallow, creamy, I'm going to use this vanilla, versus if I want something more earthy and nose driven, I'm going to use this vanilla. And you know, it even gets into coconut. Like if I want something that's more on the nose and more of the sweeter variety, I'm going to use toasted. If I want something more in depth, and that's going to be in the actual just depth of the flavor profile, I'm going to use raw or desiccated, or you know, if I want to blend of both. And so getting into those different adjuncts, getting into those different ingredients, understanding how you process them and how they change through the processing techniques are also very important when creating beers.
So sounds like there's going to be a lot of exciting changes there, Weathered Souls, coming up very soon. Any upcoming collabs or events that we should look out for?
Yeah, upcoming collabs. I am actually doing haven't announced this yet, but Texas should be very excited. We're doing our first collaboration ever with Pint House. So Pint House, I think Pint House out of Austin, they've been open for 7.5, 8 years. They opened not too far before we did, and then we opened. And one of the things that we've never ever been able to establish is a collaboration, even though we're both two big Texas brands that do a lot of similar things.
And definitely a lot of overlap there, right?
Yeah. So
just marketing.
So we're excited to finally do a collab with them this year. Yakima is going to be involved in the collaboration. So obviously getting some good, getting some good hot products and some of the processes that they've implemented. I've actually been working with Yakima a lot lately since they're partnering with the Harriet Baskerville incubation program. And so they've actually have helped me redevelop our West Coast, moving that to like 95% cryo hops, which made a huge difference in the overall quality of the beer, which was amazing. So I look forward to that collab. And then this year, we have any other ones like lined up? No. That's one of the things that I need to get back into. You know, first 5 years of our course of business, we did a lot of collaborations. Last year, I think we only did 2 or 3, just because I was more so driven on getting the incubation program started, getting the Charlotte location started, getting the National Black Brewers Association started. You know, I really didn't have the time for that. But this year is getting more established into those collabs, getting some more friends out in San Antonio, you know, getting back to that kind of culture of blending ideas and learning, because that's one of the big aspects of collaborations is obviously I want to learn something. But I did go to Oak Park Brewing not too long ago out of Sacramento. Taught them how to do some big boy stouts that are going to go into barrels. So excited to see that in probably 2 years. And then really, I mean, the overall course is hopefully we get this airport location here in San Antonio, and then obviously driving the course of business here, getting my business partner bought out, driving some additional capital in the Weathered Souls to establish it, do the things that are necessary for us to be successful. And then one of the other things that I'm toying with is converting our license, because right now we're considered a brew pub. state of Texas, but I want to convert a license to a brewery license because, again, getting into contract brewers, a lot of them are majority of Black, and then they're contracting through white-owned breweries. But then a lot of these breweries have been losing their contracts. And so obviously converting to a brewery license and then being a support factor for these breweries, we got 16 different markets. We got, 5 or 6 different countries available to us that we can distribute to. So if we're able to step in, start contract brewing for some of these brands, one that establishes them to have a brand that is not going to cancel on them. 2, it's going to drive Black on Black business, which is always amazing. And then 3, again, it's establishing them to be able to enter different markets that they don't have available. So that's one of the hopeful things that I'm working on. Hopefully you're going to be able to establish that soon so I can start helping some people out.
That's amazing. I think all of this is happening for you, and it sounds like there were some dark times and hard moments, but you came through it, and you're still here, and it only gets better from here, right?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's like one of the things about me is, one, like I said, I don't like failure. I don't like quitting. I'm very much driven on Mamba mentality. Huge Kobe Bryant fan, huge Mamba mentality fan. And so one of the things I like to say is that I stand on business. And one of the things that I've talked about when I got into beer, how old am I? 39. So 16 years ago, was the lack of diversity and how it needed to change. And that was something that I was very much driven on as a home brewer before home brewing and even establishing now. And so, one of the things that I've always talked about is how do we change the direction, the course of business is obviously driving more Black ownership, right? We can have the more brewers, we can have the more taproom employees and things like that. But where real change comes is those individuals that make the decisions, that drive the finances and all of those things. So ownership is what's going to be important. And so if I can continue to drive that, if I can continue to help other people that look like myself and put them in better positions, that's what I'm here for. And so, it wasn't something I think that is necessarily a passion for me, but kind of more so purpose. I realize if I have those opportunities to be able to give back, to do things, to provide for other people that other individuals can't do, it's kind of my duty, my job to be where I'm at to go ahead and do that. Don't get it twisted. I still have a lot of work to do, but like I said, despite all, I had it easy, right? Like I opened a brewery based off of a conversation being at the bar with my business partner. We're like, hey, when are we going to open a brewery? Oh, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. And we started working on the business plan like 6 days later type of thing. That doesn't happen for every individual that looks like myself, right? But then again, that may have happened, but now here I am having to pay millions of dollars for this brand that I created, that I've harvested over the last 7 years, and been paid pennies on the dollar and etc. And so even in that realization, it's been a definitely learning experience for myself. That's all I can really say. It's been a learning experience. And so if I can take that learning experience and help the next individual, then hey, that's going to save them some time, right?
So for folks that want to come to Weathered Souls, tell us about San Antonio and what they can expect.
Yeah, San Antonio is very much Hispanic, cultural, but we also have the largest Martin Luther King Jr. march in the country. So there is that support. But Riverwalk, dingy little river that is very popular because it's driven in downtown by the Alamo. There's a lot of good food places, bars. But San Antonio is very much a culinary city. It's been getting higher on the list of cities for visitation and traveling and things like that because of the culinary scene, the deep, rich culture that's here. So you're in for a treat in that sense. We're only 2 exits away from the airport, so super close to the airport when you come to town. You
Excellent.
know, our mission is always it's always been it's all about the beer. And so, like I said, we have our core brands, obviously West Coast IPA, Blonde, a couple of lagers, but we're very much a stout-driven brewery, very much barrel-aged driven brewery. You know, I enjoy my barrels and the processes, procedures that go within that. But yeah, that's San Antonio for you. Very much like culturally and culinary. There's some amazing foods here. One of my favorite meals of all time is by this place called Curry Boys, and it's an infusion of Asian curries and then smoked meats from Andrew South Barbecue, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And one more thing about, so your barrel aged beer, I've heard you mention so I guess you're kind of making a tongue-in-cheek reference to Big Fish when you call it I guess in beer collection circles, they call things that you want to collect a whale.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, so I mean, we have some rare beers, right? Which one of them is Whale Rider, coconut, barrel-aged coconut vanilla stout that we produce that's been very popular over the years. And it's an interesting market when it comes to the beers that consumers and customers find rare, and they do all the trading and even the secondary market. Like, for me, I would never pay $200, $300, $400 for a beer. Like, I was just drinking a mead. Had a friend over before the interview, and I was just drinking a mead, and he was like, "This bottle goes for like $700 on the secondary market." And I'm just like, Jesus! Like, I wouldn't even pay that much for bourbon. Like,
why am I drinking?
No, there's no alcoholic beverage on this earth that I'm paying $700 for. And maybe it's because I know how to make alcohol, but it's just like, Jesus! Like, I'm not doing it. And so the fact that I can sell a beer for $28, $35 in the tap room, and then somebody's taking that same beer and selling it for $350 on the secondary market, and it's selling, it's absolutely insane to me. But I always just tell people, because people are always like, how do you feel about that? Like, you should be upset. And it's like, I'm not upset by that. Like, one, I can only charge what I'm going to charge in the brewery. Like, somebody's not going to come in and buy a bottle of beer for $350. Well, they might, but not as many people as you want to purchase it, right? But then also in the sense of that, all it's doing is providing, marketing for me. It's free marketing. Like, okay, this person paid $350 for this beer. Oh my God, it must be good. I have to try it the next time they come out with it. And so I kind of keep that mentality when it comes to it. But yeah, our barrel aging process, that's something that I've been very adamant about over the years. So even getting into experimentations, the retractions, contractions of barrels, moving from them from different temperature points, doing blending, trying different beers within these barrels to see what they do, adding ingredients before, during the barrel process, or after, seeing what the difference of flavor profiles are. There's a lot of things that go into our barrel aging beer. Actually, Wednesday was my birthday, and we just released a 25-month English barley wine that was aged in a 19-year-old Fitzgerald bourbon barrel. And so that's another thing that we pride ourselves on, is trying to get rare barrels, trying to get barrels that nobody else has, even getting into our relationship with different bourbon groups and bars and restaurants and getting their single barrels, because these, obviously within these single barrels, they present different flavor points from the everyday consumption of what large mash barrels do. And so being able to implement these different flavors within our beer and finished product has been something that's been important these last couple of years.
Sounds amazing. I'm ready to book a ticket to San Antonio.
Yeah, let me know when you come.
For sure, I will. Marcus, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and learning about what you have in plan for 2024. It sounds very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you having me, Kat. It was fun.
My pleasure. Do you want to learn more about Marcus? Visit Weathered Souls.
Yeah, weatheredsouls.beer online, or you can check out our social media, Weathered Souls Brewing SATX, Weathered Souls Brewing CLT. And then my own personal Instagram, I think it's Marcus J. Baskerville. So yeah, give us a follow.
And follow the Black Brewers Association as well.
And definitely follow the National Black Brewers Association. They do have an Instagram presence and a Facebook presence. And then again, obviously, if you're in the brewing industry at any capacity, sign up for membership. Help drive this organization to create its goals and do the things necessary to make change in the industry.
Wonderful. We'll get this online so we can help you spread the word about that. Marcus, thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.